Welcome to RISK66 accelerated training video on how to negotiate collateral requirements using analytics. I'm Tim Coomer. Let's get started. In a large deductible program, the insurer handles all the losses, but the insured is obligated to reimburse the insurance company for any losses that fall in the deductible layer. Therefore, to avoid the credit risk that the insured cannot reimburse the retained losses, the insurer requires some sort of collateral from the insured. This is typically a letter of credit. There are several factors that affect the amount of collateral required by the insurance company. First, if there are any unpaid amounts from past policy periods that are still outstanding. Second, the future period loss pick, which would be the expected losses to occur in the coming policy period, and the insured's credit worthiness. So to look at this in a formula, the amount of collateral required is going to equal the ultimate losses for the past policy periods as estimated by the actuaries, minus the paid claims, plus the loss pick for the coming policy period, and plus or minus some type of credit rating adjustment for the insured. In this example, we see how the collateral requirement for 5 separate policy periods stacks up until an equilibrium point. In year 1, we see we have a collateral requirement for just the first year. In the second year, that amount should be reduced, and it is, but we add on the second year, and so forth for the third year, fourth year, and fifth year. But at some point, we should reach an equilibrium point. Now, the challenge with this is some people don't anticipate this stacking effect of the collateral requirements, or they're working with an insurance company that is not appropriately adjusting these levels down as the year matures. In that case, you can wind up with some very high collateral requirements, and that's why it's necessary to understand how to negotiate the collateral requirements down in an appropriate analytical manner. Now, ideally, the collateral term should be negotiated before policy inception. The key elements on which to focus prior to the inception of a program are the initial collateral deposit for the policy year and the terms of adjustment of that collateral at policy expiration and at intervals of time thereafter until all the losses are paid. The terms of adjustment to collateral over time should include consideration of the following questions. How often will the collateral amount be reviewed and adjusted? What is the methodology for the determination of ultimate losses and the associated outstanding losses as the coverage period matures? And finally, what is the basis for loss development and the other factors that will be used in the adjustment of the collateral amount over time? Let's look at some tips for negotiating collateral requirements. First, you want to request a copy of the insurer's proposed collateral agreement early on to have enough time to review, analyze, and negotiate the terms. Second, make sure to negotiate terms that tie the policyholder's right to collateral solely to the workers' compensation policy at issue and not to any other types of insurance policies. Many collateral requirements contain strict provisions regarding default by a policyholder. Given that default can have severe consequences, make sure to negotiate the most favorable terms in this regard. Fourth, insurers often rely on industry-wide data in calculating the loss pick. That is the number that is used as the basis for the initial collateral calculation. However, the policyholder's claims history may be significantly better than the industry-wide average. Consider retaining an independent actuary to calculate an appropriate loss pick to counter the insurer's figure. Fifth, insurers will often use a loss development factor, that is, the number used to project additional expected costs on claims, that is more conservative than an independent actuary might use. Consider retaining an independent actuary to assess the reasonableness of insurer's LDF number to ensure the insurer's LDF is not artificially high, and always insist on disclosure of the LDF number within the collateral agreement itself. And 6, collateral should be clearly defined as such in the collateral agreement itself to guard against bankruptcy risk, such as an argument by an insurance company's bankruptcy trustee or a state insurance department that the policyholder's collateral is somehow the property of an insurance company's estate in the event the insurer enters bankruptcy. An insurer will and should estimate the losses to be funded by the insured and will use those estimates as the basis for the collateral. The insured should have its own actuarial analysis to use in negotiations. Now let's look at some of the types of analysis that you can use to support a collateral negotiation process and why each analysis is important. First, the reserve analysis is useful for collateral negotiations of prior years. Next, the loss projection analysis is useful for collateral negotiations of the prospective year. Next, the confidence level analysis is useful in identifying the variability of the loss forecast. The insurer's loss forecast might be different from the insured's. A confidence level analysis will identify the variability and can be used to set the collateral at a level acceptable to both parties. This analysis can also help in offsetting an insurer's concerns about the insured's ability to pay losses in adverse situations. The payout schedule is useful in the adjustment of the initial collateral, especially for lines of coverage with short payout schedules, such as property or auto physical damage. It's also useful in predicting how collateral will decline over time. Finally, the loss development factor analysis is useful in supporting the adjustment of the collateral after the end of the coverage period. The development factors are a very important element of the reserve estimate. Agreement on development factors is vital to setting equitable levels of collateral. In conclusion, getting involved on the front end of a deductible policy and making sure the collateral mechanism is understood and negotiated, if possible, is critical. As the client renews and continues with the deductible plan, there should be a continued effort to minimize collateral requirements through good analysis and information flow to the insurance provider. An independent actuary can provide the necessary analytics to verify collateral requirements are not excessive and to help negotiate lower levels with the insurance company if appropriate. By obtaining a loss projection, reserve analysis, confidence interval, and cash flow analysis, the client CFO will have sufficient information to meet all financial planning and decision-making demands. For expanded information, see the resources listed along with this video or contact Sigma Actuarial Consulting Group at support@sigmaactuary.com. Thank you for taking time to watch this accelerated training video on how to negotiate collateral requirements using analytics from RISK66.